Welcome back to the channel, the place where secrets don't stay buried, and every polished smile hides a fracture waiting to split wide open. Tonight, we're stepping beyond the surface of Fairmont Crest, into a truth so volatile it threatens to redraw bloodlines, shatter loyalties, and turn long-protected power into a dangerous illusion. What you're about to hear isn't just another twist. It's the kind of revelation that poisons silence, exposes betrayal disguised as love, and forces characters to choose between survival and destruction. If you think you understand who belongs where, who holds the real power, or who has been telling the truth all along, think again. Stay with me, because once this story begins, there's no turning back, and some secrets, once spoken, are far more dangerous than lies. For a long time, Leslie believed that the worst truth she would ever have to survive was already behind her. When Peachy shattered her world by revealing that Barbara was her biological mother, Leslie's sense of self cracked, but did not entirely collapse. She learned, painfully, to reconstruct her identity around that revelation, forcing herself to accept that her life had been shaped by lies long before she ever had a chance to choose differently. Yet nothing prepared her for what followed, for the realization that even that devastating truth had merely been a decoy, a half-confession masking something far more destructive beneath it. This time, Peaches did not speak with hesitation or dramatic flair, but with the exhausted clarity of someone who knew she was running out of time. The admission that Anita was Leslie's true biological mother, and Vernon her biological father, did not land like a shock alone. It detonated like a buried explosive beneath the foundations of Fairmont Crest itself. In a single breath, Peaches reframed Leslie's entire existence, not as a tragic accident, but as the result of a deliberate, calculated substitution born of hatred, resentment, and a twisted sense of protection. As the truth unfolded, Leslie's mind fractured under the weight of competing emotions that refused to settle into any single shape. Rage surged first, raw and uncontrollable, directed not only at Peaches, but at the invisible web of decisions that had silently governed her life. The idea that Anita had given birth, that a child had died at birth, and that Peaches had seized that moment to replace the dead infant with Leslie was too grotesque to absorb in one piece. The cruelty of the act clashed violently with the justification Peaches offered herself, that it had been done out of love, out of vengeance, out of a belief that Leslie would be safer removed from Anita and Vernon's world. Leslie could not reconcile how someone could claim protection while committing a theft so absolute that it erased her rightful place, her lineage, and her claim to a life that had never been hers to begin with. Every memory she possessed now felt contaminated, every moment of struggle reframed as something that should never have been necessary had the truth not been buried so deeply. Yet beneath the anger lay something more dangerous, doubt. Leslie could feel it spreading quietly, corroding her certainty from within. Was this confession reliable, or was it another distortion shaped by guilt, medication, fear, or the desperation of someone nearing death? Peachy's timing itself felt like a betrayal layered atop betrayal. Why wait until the very end? Until Leslie had no space to prepare, no opportunity to confront Anita or Vernon on her own terms. Why steal her future twice, first by taking her from her biological parents, and then by withholding the truth until it could no longer be challenged or corrected? Leslie could not escape the suspicion that Peaches, even now, was controlling the narrative, choosing the moment of maximum devastation under the guise of remorse. The possibility that the confession was incomplete, exaggerated, or even deliberately false lingered like poison in Leslie's thoughts, making certainty impossible and forgiveness feel premature, if not impossible. The name Anita echoed with particular force, because it carried with it not just maternal implications, but power. If Leslie was truly Anita's daughter, then she was not merely the victim of a personal deception, but a living disruption to the social and political equilibrium of Fairmont Crest. Lineage here was currency, bloodlines a form of leverage. The revelation threatened to reorder alliances, inheritance, and influence, placing Leslie at the center of a storm she had never sought. It raised questions that extended far beyond her own pain. If she was Anita's child, then what did that make Nicole? What did it mean for Donnie? Were they sisters, rivals unknowingly bound by blood, or fragments of a family deliberately scattered to preserve appearances and power? The implications multiplied too quickly to contain, each one heavier than the last, each one capable of igniting conflicts that could not be undone. Leslie's instinct was to retreat, to protect herself by burying the truth just as it had been buried from her. Silence suddenly appeared not as cowardice, but as survival. To speak would mean inviting scrutiny, disbelief, and retaliation. It would mean becoming a threat in a world that punished instability and rewarded control. Yet to remain silent felt like a continuation of the same crime that had defined her life. Leslie was forced to confront the possibility that by choosing secrecy, she would become complicit in the very system of lies that had destroyed her sense of self. The question was no longer whether the truth would hurt, but whether withholding it would hollow her out completely. As Peaches approached her farewell, the confession took on a final, suffocating weight. There would be no clarifications later, no second chances to interrogate motives or verify details. Leslie was left alone with fragments of a reality too vast to assemble on her own. The possibility that someone else had overheard the conversation only deepened her unease. Fairmont Crest was a place where walls absorbed secrets, but never truly kept them. The idea that a third presence, perhaps Eva, perhaps someone far more dangerous, had witnessed this exchange transformed the truth from a personal burden into a potential weapon. If the secret escaped Leslie's control, it would no longer be her choice whether or how it emerged. It would be shaped by someone else's agenda, weaponized to fracture relationships and destabilize power structures already trembling beneath the surface. Forgiveness, once a concept Leslie clung to as proof of her resilience, now felt abstract and unreachable. How could she forgive someone who had stolen not just her past, but the life she was meant to live? How could she reconcile Peach's claim of love with the reality of deprivation and displacement? And yet, hatred offered no resolution either. It promised only exhaustion, a permanent tether to the very act that had broken her. Leslie stood at the edge of a truth that demanded action, but offered no clear path forward. To expose it could mean reclaiming herself or losing everything she had managed to build in the aftermath of previous revelations. To conceal it could preserve a fragile piece or rot her from the inside until nothing remained. In the end, the most dangerous question was not whether the truth would destroy her, but whether it already had. Leslie was no longer certain which version of herself could survive what came next. The woman who confronted the truth and accepted the fallout, or the one who carried it alone, knowing that silence had once ruined her life and might do so again. Somewhere within Fairmont Crest, the balance had already shifted, even if no one else yet understood why. And whether Leslie chose to speak or remain silent, the consequences were no longer hers alone to bear.